Caleb got up and prepared for the day ahead. He showered and dressed in a pair of khaki shorts and a blue short-sleeved shirt. He slipped into a pair of light brown moccasins and made his way to the kitchen. He poured himself a glass of orange juice and fried a few eggs and some bacon. He finished his breakfast and placed the dishes in the sink. It was just before 9 o'clock, and the library would be open soon. He grabbed his sunglasses and walked out the door. There was a cool morning breeze that blew in off the ocean. It felt good. Caleb walked down the sidewalk and headed toward town. He reached the library around 9:15 and went inside. He planned to find out all he could about Robert Blake. Caleb found several books and periodicals about Blake and requested a private study room. The librarian handed him a key attached to a large block of wood, flashing him a smile.
It's good to see such a young man as yourself interested in the history of our town of Newport.
Caleb smiled back.
It certainly is an interesting place. I am researching it for a paper I am writing.
He lied.
Well, I hope you find what you are looking for,
She said, and turned back to a stack of books on a cart that needed to be put away. Caleb poured through the books and articles he had found, making notes as he went. Robert Blake was born in England in 1698. He began his life as a privateer when he was 13 years old. By 16, he was the first mate of Captain John Tully, a feared pirate in his own right. He took control of Tully's ship, the Rose of Ilena, when the captain took ill. By 20, Blake had made a name for himself, becoming one of the most feared pirates in the northern Atlantic Ocean. Blake ruled the seas for 25 years, taking everything he wanted and more. He built an empire in Rhode Island, amassing 15 ships and a crew of 500 men. In 1743, while in search of an unknown treasure, the Rose of Ilena went missing near Nova Scotia, and Blake was never seen again. After a few hours, Caleb decided that he had found out everything he was going to in these dry history books. Each one shared the same story. Blake had gone missing, and no one knew why. He brought the books back to the counter and returned the key to the librarian.
You know, if you want to learn more about Robert Blake, you should seek out James Haverston,
The librarian said, noticing a theme to the books Caleb had returned.
Who is that?
Caleb asked. He had never heard of Haverston before.
James is the curator of the Nautical History Museum here in Newport. I'm sure he can share stories about Blake that you won't find in any of these old books,
She said.
And why is that?
Caleb inquired.
because he's a descendant of Blake.
She said, smiling broadly. Caleb was shocked to hear this. A descendant of Blake still lived here in Newport. He had to find this man and talk to him. He would surely be able to explain what Caleb and Lisa had seen on the beach last night. Caleb thanked the librarian for the information and quickly made his way home. He fired up the Mustang and drove to the museum. He could barely contain his excitement as he pulled up. He parked the car. He walked up to the museum and reached for the door handle. It was locked. He read the bronze plaque to the left of the door. Hours of operation. Sunday closed. Monday through Thursday 10 to 6. Friday through Saturday 10 to 8. Caleb looked at his phone. It was 11:26 a.m.
The museum should be open.
He thought to himself. He knocked on the door and waited for a few minutes. No answer. He knocked one more time. After several minutes more, he turned away, disheartened. As he made his way back to his car, he spotted an older man hailing him from across the street.
Sorry,
The gentleman said as he reached into his coat pocket for his keys.
it was a slow morning, and I was in need of some coffee.
Are you James Haverston?
Caleb asked hopefully.
I am.
The man nodded.
And you are.
My name is Caleb, sir. I was hoping you could help me with something.
The man's blue eyes lit up.
I will surely try.
James said with a smile.
The librarian told me you might be able to help learn some information about Robert Blake.
Cynthia said that, did she?
He chuckled. Haverston opened the door.
Why don't you come on in and we can have a chat?
Caleb followed James inside. The museum was dimly lit, except for the small spotlights aimed at the displays. Old flags and clothing were pinned up in shadow boxes on the walls. Display cases with shackles, cutlasses, and pistols lined the room. A large circular pedestal with a large rusted anchor stood in the center of the room.
So what is your interest in Captain Blake?
Haverston asked with genuine curiosity.
This may sound strange, but I think I saw his ship last night.
Caleb cringed as the words left his mouth.
Great, now he's going to think I'm loony.
He thought, but waited for the older man's reply. Haverston's eyes opened wide, and his jaw dropped a bit.
It's been quite a while since I heard anyone say that they saw the rose.
James said, letting out a slow breath.
So you believe me then?
Caleb was shocked by this.
I do.
Haverston admitted.
I have seen it myself a few times.
You have?
Caleb felt a bit relieved to hear this.
The last time was about 10 years ago.
Haverston went on.
Those ragged black sails are etched into my mind forever.
Caleb listened closely to the tale the man spun and nodded at how similar their experiences had been. When Haverston finished his story, he looked at his watch.
If you have more time, there is something I would like to show you.
I have plenty of time.
Caleb said, trying to mask his excitement.
Follow me then. It's in my office.
Haverston led the way to the back of the museum. He opened the door to his office and directed Caleb to a chair in front of a large desk. The room was designed like a cabin on an old ship. The small windows let in the sunlight, fracturing the beams around the room. There was a small antique globe in the corner of the room. Haverston unlocked a cabinet behind his desk. From what Caleb could see, it was filled with books and rolled-up maps.
Ah, here it is.
Haverston exclaimed. He pulled an old leather-bound book from the cabinet and sat down behind the desk opposite Caleb.
This book has been handed down through my family for generations. As I am sure Cynthia told you, I am a descendant of Blake.
Caleb nodded.
She did mention that, yes.
I figured she did. Anyway, this is a journal that belonged to Blake. The last entry is dated a month prior to his disappearance. It is filled with stories that you may be interested in.
Haverston handed Caleb the book.
Do be careful, the pages are quite brittle.
Caleb accepted the book and paged through it slowly. The book outlined many of Blake's conquests and the treasures he had amassed. While Caleb read the book, Haverston stood and walked to the windows, staring out at the day.
How I wish I could have lived in Blake's time.
Haverston fantasized as he stared out at the waves. As Caleb neared the end of the book, a folded-up page fell loose from the leather cover. This must be important, he thought. Caleb quickly slid the page into his pocket, making sure he was not noticed. He closed the book and placed it back on the desk.
Thank you for sharing this with me.
Caleb said.
It certainly is a special piece of history.
I'm glad that there was finally someone I could share this with.
Haverston said.
That I'm not the only one who has seen the rose. Please come back and visit with me anytime.
Caleb stood and shook Haverston's hand.
Thank you again.
Caleb said.
I will come back again, I promise.
Caleb showed himself out of the office and left the museum. He couldn't wait to get home. The stolen page seemed to burn in his pocket. He felt bad for taking it, but the allure of the secrets within was far too great. He would return it someday.